Welcome, business podcasters, to another episode of Podcasting and Professional Services. I'm your host, John Tyreman, and today I'm excited to bring you my conversation with Matt Tait. He's the CEO and founder of Decimal, and he is the host of the After the First Million podcast. He also co-hosts the Accounting for Innovation podcast with Jody Paydar. Matt's a great follow on LinkedIn. You should follow him there and check out both of his podcasts. I liked my conversation with Matt because he has perspective on both sides of hosting a co-hosted commentary style show as well as hosting an interview style show. And we got into the differences and the similarities between the two and the different mindset that you have to bring as a host. So I thought that was one of the key moments of my conversation with Matt. We also talked about, one of the common challenges that I run into when I'm talking to firm owners and doer sellers and folks that are interested in launching a podcast is that, well, I don't have time to invest in marketing. Well, I talked to Matt about that, and he is a firm owner. He hosts 2 shows. He's a busy guy. He's CEO. He's running a company, building a company, and he has time to invest in marketing. And so I wanted to pick his brain around kind of why that's important and prioritizing that. So I think you'll find value in that as well. But first, before we get to my conversation with Matt, I have an exclusive offer for you, a done with you podcast launch package where I will work with your team to help you launch a podcast, guide you through strategy, the operations of it, the marketing plan behind it, and then I will help you produce a pilot episode. And if you're interested, go to redcedarmarketing.com to learn more. All right, and now for my conversation with Matt Tait. All right, today I am joined by Matt Tait, CEO and founder of Decimal, host of After the First Million, and co-host of the Accounting for Innovation podcasts. You can follow Matt on LinkedIn and check out both of his podcasts. Matt, welcome to the show.
John, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. And it's great. I feel like I know you. You're a familiar face to me. We were just talking about that. I produced the Accounting for Innovation podcast, and I love hearing you and Jody go back and forth, and I'm excited to explore your experience with your other show too. Matt, just for our listeners, can you help set the stage? What is Decimal and who are your target clients?
So Decimal is a bookkeeping and tax company. We started about 5 years ago, and we help, I would say, small to mid-sized businesses, usually 1 to about 50 million in revenue, with paying the bills, getting paid, and tracking it all. So we do bookkeeping, we do all the bill pay and invoicing, payroll, and then their taxes. So ultimately, and I'm not an accountant, I'm a recovering attorney, but our whole mission, our whole goal is just to make it easier to be in business. And this year, expanding that out to also helping and working with firms on just making it easier to run a bookkeeping and accounting firm.
Yeah. Well put. And I like the way that you describe it, at least from what I've heard on your Accounting for Innovation podcast. You try to keep your operation lean, try to lean on technology as much as you can. And I love how open you are about the way that you're building Decimal, and I really respect that. So I just wanted to call that out.
Well, I appreciate it. And I think, ultimately, and you see it with podcasting too, the tools you use either make your life easier or harder. And the problem is that nowadays the tools are changing at an astronomical pace. And so it's now our responsibility to figure out how to stay on top of that. And then you said just being transparent, like doing this stuff is hard. You get it. Running a business sucks. Like, it's awesome. I love it. But it also like is really a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And normalizing that and talking about like what we do and what we did well, what we sucked at, like hopefully it helps somebody.
Well, I think so. And I think people, they want to know, they see success, and, it's easy to post about our wins on social media.
Right.
And then podcasts give you a forum to have more of a human conversation and back and forth. And, I think that's a great segue. So you launched After the First Million in April 24.
Yeah.
And then shortly thereafter, we launched season 1 of Accounting for Innovation. So why did you decide that podcasting should be a big part of your marketing strategy?
Well, you just kind of hit it right on the head there. Like, having authentic conversations is a good thing. I mean, number one, it makes me feel good. And like quite honestly, doing things that make you feel good is a good idea in business. It's
Yeah.
doing the things that don't make you feel good where you'll really struggle. And what I see is in the SMB space, talking to businesses, you hear a lot about startup and you hear a lot about like I made billions, which is awesome. I would like to make billions and I enjoy startup. But there's this like messy middle of building a company that nobody talks about where it's like you have to go from startup phase to putting in processes and hiring employees and doing all the stuff that is hard. And we wanted to just start to normalize and have good conversations about it. And then this year we're transitioning to making it purely about accounting firms and bookkeeping shops. Like, how do you think about scaling your business beyond a million? What are the decisions that you can make? How can we really kind of normalize and make that easier on people? And so we got into this just to say, like, hey, we wanted to take a step forward and authentically impact discussions and authentically walk people through helping. Because, particularly in accounting, so many of the talking heads that are out there don't do this in real life or haven't done it in 30 years. And that there's a big difference between me saying, like, hey, I now have 200 clients on an AI native ledger. Would you like to learn about that? Versus somebody who's not doing it saying, hey, I tried Chat GPT on the no clients I had, and here's how you should use Chat GPT on your
Mm,
clients. Yeah, there's a big difference there between like
yeah.
thought and reality.
Well, and show, don't tell too,
Yeah,
right? And walking the walk instead of just talking the talk.
absolutely.
And you're a busy guy, right? You're a busy owner, a CEO, you're a dad, you host 2 podcasts, you post on LinkedIn almost every day. Um, one common challenge I hear from folks that want to start a podcast and want to have that conversational marketing component, they
Yeah.
see the value and the benefit of repurposing and redistribution and video on social media. But one common challenge I hear is that these experts, these firm owners, they don't have time for marketing. And how is it that you have time? What's your secret?
Well, it's really helpful that I run a bookkeeping company and I am physically incapable of doing bookkeeping. So I
There
need to
you
fill
go.
my time with something. But like, here's the reality. If you're running a bookkeeping firm and you want to grow it, you shouldn't be doing bookkeeping either.
Right.
And we've designed Decimal to make me not work in the business. Here's what I would say about podcasting and just go to market in general. Too many people just do things. They don't actually think it through. You should start a podcast if you have something to say to a specific group of people, period. Or you should start a podcast if you want to and it'll make you feel good and you have the money to do it. Do it. Like, make sure that it fits some need. If it's a need in you to just be able to start to talk things out, go for it. Like, that can be worth it. If you have something specific to say to a specific group of people, do it as well. Like, have a goal. Too many people follow and they hear somebody did a great job and made a bunch of money doing podcasting. So they started a podcast, but they have no plan. They don't know who they're talking to.
Right.
And, that's not a good thing. And too much of go to market in accounting is a generation behind.
Okay.
And that can be where you follow too slow. I'll use a great example. I listened to a go to market webinar the other day, and it said the way that you can become $1 million business is to do outbound thousands of cold emails, use those cold emails, build thousands of LinkedIn messages, and do all of that. And you should write them yourself. And I'm thinking, no way. Like, that may have worked tactically like 6, 7, 8 years ago. But with post pandemic plus now AI, the amount of noise that business owners are getting in their inbox and their LinkedIn inbox is so astronomically high, it won't work. It will waste your time. You won't get anywhere. You're going to get spammed. You're going to ruin your domain. And it's a generation behind. You have to rethink intentionally what you're doing. Podcasting can be that if you're doing it with the right intention and the right plan. And that, I think, is the biggest thing, is really thinking these things through and using it to build as part of a plan. Like, one of the things we talk to new firm owners all the time is You should niche down in two different ways. One, if you have a specific niche that you've worked on or expertise, dive into that. Learn if it's good. If not, pivot away to the next one. Keep trying until you find something and go local. Go meet people at events. Go do stuff. Don't be lazy. Go press the flesh, because pulling back to old school is actually working better now
Yeah.
because the noise online is so extensive and loud that you are breaking through it with a handshake. And so how do you get those handshakes? And podcasting can be a really good part of that. So to me, long story short, I would say is I've built this in because it's part of a very intentional plan, and it works with that intentional plan in mind.
Yeah. There's one thing you said, Matt, that I want to unpack a little bit, and it was you were intentional about structuring Decimal so that you didn't work in the business, you're working on the business. And so I would imagine that obviously that frees you up to invest your time a lot in sales and marketing. In what other ways are you investing in marketing and outside of the podcasts?
So we are a much different use case. We have 110 employees. I've got a team of people that do marketing. I've got a sales team. They're the ones that do the boots on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to create thought leadership. And this year, focusing a lot on AI, on outsourcing, on just building a better firm that makes it easier for people to work an appropriate amount of time and make the appropriate amount of money. So we've just designed, but even at the very beginning, I was the person selling. I sold the first $1 million in deals. We're well beyond that now, and we have a team of people that do it. But now it's my job to strategize and help figure out what's working here, what's not working there. We now have a full marketing playbook, and we have multiple playbooks that we run. But part of it too is just figuring out the strategy behind things, testing it out, seeing what works, pulling back what doesn't, testing something else out. And you and I talked about this earlier, like pricing go to market is a moving target.
Mm-hmm.
You will never lock in permanently. And if you think that through, it means you're always focusing on it. I would argue that the most important job of any accountant and bookkeeper that owns their own firm is selling, selling, selling. People assume you can do accounting. You need to sell, to grow, to make money, to do things.
And in order to sell, you need to understand your ideal clients.
100%.
That's the key to selling is really understanding their needs.
Yeah.
You launched after the first million, and it's an interview series, and you're interviewing successful entrepreneurs about that messy middle and what happens after that first million. Accounting for Innovation, on the other hand, is a co-hosted commentary style show. You and Jody are going back and forth, and you're talking about AI and you're talking about outsourcing. Having experienced both of those sides of podcasting, how would you compare and contrast those two formats?
So one is pure interview and one is just like thoughtful banter, right?
Right.
I think both can be really powerful. An interview allows you to go deeper on a specific topic. I like that personally because I enjoy like diving deep. I like depth. Depth is something that I enjoy, that makes me feel good. It helps pull out the stories, that gets real tactical advice. I learn something on every podcast interview I do. I bet you're the same. Like you interview a deep thinker and you have these conversations and you're like taking notes afterwards and you're like, gosh, I'm going to try that, or I'm going to give this a shot. And like, that stuff's awesome. What I love about the banter with Jody, it's a totally different brain subset where we pick topics and Jody's just awesome. But we're also like the podcast of misfit toys. Like she's always been the radical CPA and I'm the non-accountant that is building a successful accounting company. And I compete with accountants. And yet I'm also like, I want to help them do better because I see this as such an amazing time to build and be an accountant and build an accounting firm. And so it's also about finding the right things. Like you've probably seen this too, where Jody and I think, have developed a good rapport. Like we are both perfectly fine, like arguing and moving on. And that's made it fun to have these conversations. And we don't agree every time. And that's what also makes it, I think, a worthwhile conversation. And it's what keeps us, even when we're not recording, talking every couple of weeks and catching up on topics, is because, we don't agree. But yet we are both, I think, genuinely good people that enjoy talking and spending time together. And ultimately it came from like, Jody and I had a random conversation. And then 2.5 hours later, we both realized that we should have left for the 3 meetings we missed. And we're like, we should turn this into a podcast. And I think it's been fun since we did.
I think one of the things that makes a co-hosted show work is the chemistry that's built up over time.
Yeah.
Between two individuals or three individuals. I saw this post from James Carberry the other day where he was talking about how three co-hosts actually creates an even more dynamic environment
I
because,
see that.
with two, you're pressured to respond after your co-host kind of ends their thought. But with three, it's like whoever has the more kind of pressing, whoever is adding the more value kind of gets the spotlight there. So I thought that was an interesting dynamic from a co-hosted perspective.
The other thing that can be tough is when you're doing an interview, your ego can do what you want it to do. When you're co-hosting, you also have to have some humility to actually listen and take in what other people are saying and not just need to talk. And I think that can be the tough thing is when you're co-hosting, you share the stage. And to do that well, you have to be willing to take a step back versus when you're interviewing, it's all about you and how well you do at interviewing somebody and pulling out the great story from them.
Well, and then in interviewing that, it's a different kind of listening
Big
because
time.
you're listening to uncover new insights for your listeners because you always got to keep them in mind. They're the
Right.
third person in the room,
Every time.
and what are the insights that will add value to them? So you're kind of listening to dig deeper as opposed to listening to respond. But also kind of active listening as well because you want the conversation to be natural and meaningful and valuable. So there's a lot that goes into hosting a podcast, and
Oh, yeah.
that's why I wanted to explore that with you because I host a co-hosted show and interview series as well, so I see both sides of that coin.
Which do you prefer?
Honestly, I love both because,
Yeah.
like I learned so much from the interviews. I see it as a form of market research because I'm
Big time.
interviewing folks that are, maybe they're a few steps ahead of me, and I want to take notes for myself. But I know my listeners will probably get value out of it. But it's really an exercise in market research too.
Yeah, I agree.
So and then on your guest side, how do you go through that guest selection process? Like, who is your ideal guest for after the first million?
In the first season, it was people that had built companies or were currently building companies and had gotten after that first million
Mm-hmm.
and could kind of tell the lessons of what helped them get there, where they screwed up, what they learned. That was the real impact, I think, of season one, was just general business owners from all walks of life that could have an impactful story. Season two, and we're started with a LinkedIn live conversation tomorrow, which will be way before this comes out.
Time is a full circle in podcast world.
But it's going to be focused on people building bookkeeping and accounting shops and how they can get over the first million. And to me, where that is kind of niching down is I've got a conversation this week with an amazing woman who has built one of the most successful orthodontic shops in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And that conversation is going to be on the importance of niching and finding a niche and how expertise is important for building rapport and growth. The conversation with Sasha is going to be on cutting edge technology and how not just waiting till everybody else does it, but really getting out in front of AI and how to make it approachable and how to take the first steps, because implementing the right tools is so important. And then other conversations are just going to be people that have scaled their accounting firms or their businesses or partnerships or, all the aspects that come into building a successful scaled company and niching that down to how do we help accounting firms do that better.
Okay. And so to be clear, this is an accounting firm that focuses on orthodontics, that vertical?
No, this is going to be the actual orthodontist talking about from a client perspective of growth, why having expertise in a niche from a partner, and particularly an accounting partner, is important.
Oh, okay. Okay. So they're providing market perspective to accounting firms.
Right. The importance of like, we all hear about niching and finding a niche and finding a specific
Right.
vertical, but it's a theory.
How does that resonate with the buyers?
Right. How does it resonate with the buyer? How does it resonate with successful people? How does it resonate with the industry? Why is it important? All of that stuff I think will be really cool.
Well, that is one common theme. I studied high growth professional services firms for 7 years at an agency called Hinge, and the research that we did, we found that specialization was the number one driver of high growth in professional services across all industries: accounting, AEC, consulting. And I've also too found that to be the case with podcasts that focus on a specific industry segment. There's one show that is in my portfolio. One of my clients is a financial service provider for ground transportation companies. And we built a podcast around that niche and that industry, and he's got all these relationships, and it's working out really well. So yeah, the industry specialization is definitely a key to growth.
Oh, I agree completely.
So Matt, if you were talking with a firm owner, let's say they're an expert, maybe they're a seller doer, a doer seller, and they've been tasked with, okay, you need to do some marketing, or they need to market their firm, and they're considering launching a podcast. What's one piece of advice that you would give to them?
I would think through what is really great about what you do. Like, what do you do uniquely well? Is it your personality? Is it your niche? Is it your team? Is it some aspect of what you do? And then start to build off of that. I think find what you truly believe you're really great at and amplify that. That I think will also make you feel good. It'll be authentic. And I think when you start to talk about that and build a show around that, I think you have the chance to turn your podcast into something that can be impactful for your business.
Yep. Build around your strengths, build around your personality. We were just talking about co-hosted commentary versus interview style shows. One of my common rocks that I lean back on is, lean into your personality. Are you more curious and inquisitive? Maybe an interview show is better for a better fit. Or do you like to talk? Do you have the gift of gab, right? Maybe a monologue series is right up your alley. Or, do you have banter that you can have with someone else in the industry? Maybe it's within your firm. Maybe it's with a strategic partner in the industry. Finding what works for you, what fits your personality, what you like doing. That's great advice. Well, Matt, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything that we didn't talk about about podcasting, about your shows that you want to share with our listeners?
Look, have fun with it. That's the biggest thing too. And also, so much of downloads, viewership takes time, and anything in marketing in general takes time. And so make sure whatever you're going to do, whatever you're going to start, if it's well thought out, give it time. Give it 3, 6, 12 months and say, hey, I'm going to do this for a year, and then we're going to evaluate it. Because it's unlike sales where you can have instant gratification. Marketing is always, all aspects of marketing are designed to be a slow burn. Give it time and be patient with it. And I think that's an important addition.
Well, the reason why is because sales cycles are so long, right? You get an inbound inquiry and they're ready to have a conversation. From that point on, it takes 120 days on average, right? So what happens way upstream from that, right?
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, marketing is absolutely addressing that 95% of the market that's not in market for services right now. Maybe they're satisfied with their status quo, or they're open to hearing what else is out there.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your experience hosting both of your shows. For folks that are listening, they can go to decimal.com, check out After the First Million and Accounting for Innovation. Matt, thank you so much.
John, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to my conversation with Matt Tait. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, We have a YouTube page. Subscribe there. Just search for John Tyreman or Podcasting and Professional Services, and leave us a rating and review on Apple. That really helps us grow the show. All right. Happy podcasting.